He saw the stars, and it changed everything. He dared to say the earth moved, and they silenced him. This is not just a story about science, it's about truth and the cost of telling it. This is the story of Galileo Galilei, the man who proved the universe was bigger than we believed and was punished for it. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. Galileo Galilei. What happens when a mind is centuries ahead, but the world refuses to follow? In 1564, in the city of Pisa, a boy was born who would one day challenge the heavens and the people who ruled them. His name was Galileo Galilei, and even as a child, he was fascinated by the stars. While others prayed to the sky, he studied it. While others saw mystery, he saw math. He would lie awake for hours watching the slow movement of constellations, asking himself, why do they move? What are they made of? Who decides their path? He was born into a world where the earth stood still, and the heavens turned around it. That was the law. That was the doctrine. That was the belief passed down for over 1,000 years. But young Galileo was already wondering, what if they were wrong? At age 10, he was sent to a monastery. The monks noticed something unusual. Galileo wasn't satisfied with memorizing scripture. He wanted to understand how the universe worked. He wanted proof. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. Galileo Galilei. Though his father, Vincenzo, hoped he would become a doctor, Galileo's heart belonged to the mysteries of nature. He watched pendulums swing, dropped stones from towers, timed their descent by his own heartbeat. He wasn't just learning, he was testing. All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. Galileo Galilei. Galileo grew into a brilliant student, a mind fueled not by obedience, but by curiosity. At the University of Pisa, he studied medicine to please his father, but secretly immersed himself in mathematics and mechanics. Numbers made sense. The heart, to Galileo, was not poetry. It was a pump. He began to question everything, even Aristotle, whose ideas had ruled science for centuries. According to Aristotle, heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones. Everyone accepted it. Galileo didn't. On the steps of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, he climbed with 2 balls, one heavy, one light, and dropped them together. They hit the ground at the same time. The crowd gasped. Galileo smiled. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. Galileo Galilei. He proved the old philosophers wrong, but instead of praise, he faced resistance. Professors called him arrogant. Clergy called him dangerous. Galileo pressed on. He wrote papers, built mechanical devices, and in 1609 he heard rumors of a spyglass, a Dutch invention that could make faraway objects seem close. Galileo didn't just improve the telescope, he turned it toward the stars. What he saw would shake the very foundations of heaven. Wine is sunlight, held together by water. Galileo Galilei. He saw craters on the moon, disproving the belief that heavenly bodies were perfect. He saw moons orbiting Jupiter, proving not everything revolved around Earth. He saw phases of Venus, confirming that it orbited the sun. Galileo had evidence. The Earth was not the center of the universe. But with truth came danger. The Church taught a geocentric model, Earth at the center, ordained by God, reinforced by Scripture. To challenge it, was heresy. In 1616, the Catholic Church officially condemned the heliocentric model, declaring it heretical to claim that the Earth moved around the sun. Galileo was warned, silenced, ordered not to teach or write about it again. But he could not unsee what he had seen. For years he stayed silent. But in 1632 he published his masterpiece, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. It was bold, it was brilliant, and it mocked the geocentric model with wit and undeniable logic. The Church saw it as a challenge, not just to astronomy, but to authority. Galileo was summoned to Rome, accused of heresy, forced to stand before the Inquisition, a court of powerful men who believed they spoke for God. In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual. Galileo Galilei. He was interrogated, threatened, told he could be tortured. And finally, he broke. On June 22nd, 1633, Galileo was forced to kneel, to recant, to say under oath that the Earth did not move. And yet, it moves. Galileo Galilei allegedly whispered he was found guilty, sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. The man who had opened the eyes of the world would spend his final years behind closed doors. Galileo died in 1642, blind, confined, and condemned. But his ideas were not buried with him. They soared like the planets he studied. In the centuries that followed, his work laid the foundation for modern physics, astronomy, and the scientific method itself. His telescope changed not only how we see the sky, but how we understand our place in the universe. Nature is relentless and unchangeable, and it is indifferent as to whether its hidden reasons and actions are understandable to man or not. Galileo Galilei. The Church would take nearly 350 years to formally acknowledge its error. In 1992, Pope John Paul II publicly stated that Galileo had been right. By then his name had already become a symbol of courage, of intellect, and of truth against power. I have never met a man so ignorant that I couldn't learn something from him. Galileo Galilei. Galileo wasn't just a man of science. He was a rebel of the mind, a thinker who looked through a lens and saw a bigger truth. He teaches us this, that truth may be silenced for a time, but never forever, and that the stars will always shine, no matter who tries to turn off the light. Galileo Galilei showed us something powerful, that the truth doesn't ask for permission, that knowledge once seen cannot be unseen. He lost everything, but his vision still guides our eyes, and that whisper, and yet it moves, still echoes through every observatory, every science classroom, and every question we dare to ask. Passion is the genesis of genius. Galileo Galilei. He teaches us this, that the courage to question is the first step toward progress, that no amount of power can suppress a mind committed to seeking truth, that even in silence, a revolution can begin. If you believe in science, in courage, in the voices who speak truth to power, then share this story. Let Galileo's light reach someone who's still in the dark. Subscribe for more cinematic stories from the minds who shaped our world.